Thank you, Michael, and thanks to all of you for being here with me this morning. As I'm sure many of you already know, and probably all of you to some extent, there's amazing things going on in IT infrastructure in terms of storage and management and monitoring tools, performance optimization, security, mobility, energy saving things, green capabilities, just so many things. But rather than focus on the ground and kind of geek out on all of those very interesting and really some truly remarkable things, I want to try to come at this from about 5,000 feet and see if we can see what some of the larger trends that have been pushing some of these things since the very beginnings, and even before we even had anything we would have called, a computer, short of a human that did computing, and see how we can do that in order to look forward. How do I move forward here, Michael? There we go. All right, I've got this. I see we're not getting the whole slide. It says, looking back is a way of looking forward. We've certainly heard sayings like Santayana is there, but the idea for this really came from, we're not getting good results here moving forward. Andy Kessler was educated as an electrical engineer and took a job on Wall Street as an analyst of high-tech companies. He was a very good one. And in the mid-90s, he became a hedge fund manager and was a very successful hedge fund manager, too. And he wrote the story of that in a book called Running Money. And he's a very good writer, an excellent storyteller. It's a very readable book. But his mentor in investing, in how to be an investment manager, because he was moving from being an analyst, said to him, study history, and you will find the patterns that repeat. Study the industrial age, and the patterns there will repeat in the information age. So he really became a student of history, and he tells a lot of that history in Running Money, but he had so much more that he shared it to this storybook called How We Got Here, which is really a history of the industrial age and how it leads directly into the information age and how those patterns repeat. And let me just share one of them with you. The basic transformation, the basic technology that transformed everything was the steam engine in the industrial age. It started out as something to pump water for fountains, later to pump water out of coal mines, but then changed everything. It changed transportation, manufacturing, communications. It changed everything. Business models had to change. Ways of getting investment had to change to be able to fund these new innovations, and the whole world changed because of it. Similarly, the microcomputer served as the same kind of fundamental technology in the information age. And yet started out as something to do, calculations. The original computers, we'll actually look at some of them here this morning. But it too has changed everything. It's changed entertainment and communications and transportation, and I don't have to explain that to you. You folks already know this. So we're going to see if we can see some of those patterns here this morning. If I can get this device to scroll to the next slide. Yes. Maybe. Okay. The computer's born in the 40s. A lot of it stimulated by the war effort. And three technologies came together to build these first computers. And really these three technologies, the essence of what they were about, continue to drive infrastructure today and how it is then utilized. One was the phone system. What's a phone system? Big complex system of switches. What's a computer? Very small complex system of switches. So the first computer actually built on, this is Lily Tomlin's funny version of it, but this is really what telephone operators looked like in the 20s and 30s. And here's what the first computer looked like. This is ENIAC. You can see it's the exact same technology, and here's a apparently posed picture of some early geeks programming that very first computer. So you can see how the phone system technology connecting lots of switches together certainly played into this whole idea of building the first computer. The second piece was smaller, and that came from nuclear research. The electron microscope was invented in the 30s. All the effort that went into building the atomic bomb wasn't all just for destruction. A lot of, good things came of that research, and certainly a good thing if you consider the end of the war a good thing. And the third piece was radar. Well, what's radar about? Radar is about fast pulses of energy. Before radar, we tried to enhance our hearing. Here's some of those devices that we used. Of course, we did have mobile radar, personal favorite of mine here. And actually, the interesting thing is Arthur C. Clarke, famous perhaps mostly in pop culture for writing 2001: A Space Odyssey, but actually a great science fiction writer. He was working for the British military. He's a Brit, and he was a radar technician using radar to one, help planes land that were coming back in the dark from bomb runs, but also to spot planes. And he said, well, if I can bounce it off airplanes in the air, I can bounce it off other things in the air. So he tried to bounce it off the moon. There was about a 3-second delay. So he said, well, that would be too slow for communications. But what if we had satellites? And he actually invented the concept of geosynchronous satellites, and actually the orbit that those go in today are actually named after him because he actually worked out the math and wrote about it in his science fiction writings. So those trends continue to drive the evolution of IT ever since, as well as some other things. It's certainly becoming more usable, getting more bang for our buck, and these are interesting, of course. But even more important is how these things that have come from this and the ability to make them cheaper and faster and better and smaller has really changed everything, and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. So looking forward, I see 3 trends driving IT infrastructure, and perhaps everything. Maybe these are trends that are much bigger than IT. One is the doing more with less. The other is the doing IT anywhere. The doing more with less goes back to the very beginning. And the third is really not so much about the stuff itself, but about how we think about it. And certainly about how we think about IT, but it's really about how we think about everything, how IT is part of an enterprise, and really another way of looking at everything, of other large systems, large complex things like an economy or healthcare or pieces of government policy. So let's get into some of this. The first 2 trends, the first is doing more with less. This one certainly is a carryover from the very beginning. It's certainly about more capability, packing more things closer together. The cost to manage to put a PC on a desktop in a large organization has gone down so much in the last decade. Not so much because the cost of the machine and the software itself changed that much, but because a big part of it is how we virtualized all the servers and infrastructure that supports them. So we've reduced the cost of the overhead of keeping that machine there, and of course we've standardized and simplified and rationalized those things, which has reduced the cost of labor that we put into them, and not just the labor on the IT side, but the labor of the user side, and of course energy conservation, all kinds of things to reduce